The Week 4 schedule in the NAIA is upon us, and we're going to talk about that tonight. We also are going to talk about a few things that maybe, just maybe, you might bet the barn on. And I'm going to pitch to you why I think that there is a top conference in the NAIA, at least through Week 3. And just to make Henchman 21 frustrated, I don't have it as the Frontier. Hey, let me say one other thing before we get started. You are awesome. Thank you for watching Midwest Sports Net and tonight's edition of College Football This Week. I'm Joey McWilliams. Glad that you all are with us tonight, and I think I have enough of that name on there. Yeah, you know who I am, and you know who you are, so let us all know who you are and from where you might happen to be watching tonight, or what team you are cheering for in the NAIA. Heading into week number 4, there is a lot going on, so let's get to some news really quickly. First, I want to let you know, if you didn't know already, Lennox Brown from Morningside was selected to be a part of the 2025 All-State Good Works team. Now, that is an honor that goes to a number of NCAA Division I players, as well as players throughout the FCS, Division II, Division III, the NAI as well. Lennox Brown, the lone member of an NAI football team to make the team this year. And you know what? Quite an honor for him. So congratulations to Lennox Brown. Appreciate him being there for that, or for what he has done. I also appreciate Roger Meyer for being here at the beginning once. Well, Roger, we appreciate you watching the channel anyway around, whether it's beginning or the replay. Glad that you're along for the ride tonight. Lots to talk about. So again, let's get into it. Let's talk about top 25 rankings really quickly, and we will bring that up right now. From the NAIA, the coaches poll, the rankings are out, and this is what it looks like. 21 through 25, Marion in at 21. Carroll was at 25 in the preseason and is at 25 again following week 3. The Saints not moving up, but still plenty of time to do that. Last year, the Saints made their run in the latter half of the season, so they got a little bit more attention there as well. So Casey Willison, going to be a late one out in California for the boys. Absolutely it will be. There are a couple of trips in the Frontier Conference that you're talking about putting a lot of frequent flyer miles on there. I hope their athletic departments get something out of that. Moving on through 11 through 20, this is again in the coaches poll, the NAI coaches poll. Dickinson State in at number 11. There were some folks who questioned that, but, you know, the Blue Hawks again have won their conference championship 10 consecutive years. The question is, what have they done yet this year? Mid-America at number 12. It says Southeastern. It looks like a wind is blowing there, but that's actually Southeastern. And Texas Wesleyan drops after that week 1 loss to Lindsey Wilson. OUAZ in at number 18. Had a chance to watch them last week. Like the play of Luke Jerome, and for Coach Riley Murphy, a win on the road to go with a win at home. He's starting the season 2-0. To the top 10 in the coaches poll, the rankings have Grandview at number 1, Kaiser at number 2. Those were your top 2 teams to finish last year as well. Really no surprise right there. Benedictine above Morningside. And really, the reason is the 4-point victory for the Ravens over the Mustangs there. Indiana Wesleyan, Georgetown in at number 6. Lindsey Wilson from unranked all the way to number 10. And you know what? A lot of folks that think they could and should be just a little bit higher there. Shout out to Dave, Roll Stangs. We just talk a little Morningside tonight, so we will do that as well. Let's go over to the media poll while we're up here. And NAIA Football hosts a media poll each and every week. This was the first regular season poll, by the way, for the coaches this year. The media poll has been out following each week. And following week 3, you see Concordia there in at number 21. Texas Wesleyan all the way down to 25 from 19 in the coaches poll. They're in at number 25. 11 through 20 have Marion in at number 11. Now, they were number 21 in the coaches poll, so the media thinks a little bit more highly of Marion. Campbellsville at 13 there. OUAZ right about the same place that they were in the coaches poll, and Dickinson State at number 18 in the media poll. So the Blue Hawks maybe not as high on the radar as they are for the media as they are for the coaches there. And 1 through 10 in the media poll, Grandview, Benedictine edging Kaiser there for that number 2 spot. Morningside number 4 in both. Montana Tech at number 5, and that's a really good place for the Diggers. They have had a solid season so far, and if you judge Montana Tech on the body of its work so far, you have to say that's a really good place there. Lindsey Wilson in at number 8, also a very good place there. Friends at number 6 in the media poll. And you know what? Top to bottom in this top 10, it's tough to argue with any one of those, and I'm not going to. I think that they're all solid positions there for those particular teams in those spots. So shout out to all the folks who voted in the media poll. And again, shout out to Corey and Matt over at NAIA Football. They do a fantastic job over there. And if you haven't watched them on a Monday, you need to do so. They have plenty of time to get everything together for their Monday show, and it's a good show, so shout out to them. By the way, they can be viewed now also on the Urban Edge Network, and they were talking about that on Monday. It's a benefit to them and to their program, so get a chance to watch them there. Now, watch us here on Midwest Sportsnet on YouTube. Definitely the place to watch us here, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. Slander. Is it slander from the coaches? I don't know, Roger. You know what? Maybe a little bit, but it's tough to keep up with all those things. Maybe we have a little bit more at our disposal on the media side to get to see a few more of them. So we'll see how that works out. And they have to have them in by a certain time too. But yeah, by the way, who are you slandering? Is it because of Marion? I have to ask that because they had Marion at 21 instead of 11. Just checking. Let us know. By the way, if you're watching tonight and you have not yet signed in the chat, go ahead and do that. Let us know. We have a great community here on Midwest Sportsnet, and I encourage you to be a part of it. It's just a privilege to get to visit with you guys at this point now in the season, twice a week. So I'm enjoying the Thursday nights and the Sunday nights, and that's what our show is going to look like for the foreseeable future through a few more weeks here in the regular season. Things may change up a little bit later on, but not right now. Roger's saying, sure. Yeah, Marion, the media probably have Marion where Roger wants them to be. Possibly. Do you want them in the top? I don't think they should be in the top 10 because they did have that one little slip up against UIndy. Division II program, I know, but that's all right. Okay, we've talked about the rankings. We have talked about Lennox Brown. We will talk a little bit later on the program about what you might bet your barn on. I have the barn. It's out that direction from where I'm sitting right now. Mrs. Midwest Sportsnet would not let me bet as she says, the carriage house, but we'll see. We'll see if there's something that is worth betting the barn on tonight. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. Going through the schedule now, let's look at week 4, and we are going to go all the way through the NAIA slate, but we start with Georgetown at St. Thomas. Now, I don't have graphics for 44, 45 games. Sorry about that. We'll just talk. Maybe some of you all are listening while you're driving anyway on the replay, and this is just good audio to have with you. That's fine. You'll know what's going on. Georgetown, 3-0 on the year in the top 10 in the media poll there. And the Tigers will be on the road at the Bobcats. St. Thomas, 1-1. Second meeting all time between these two schools. Georgetown won the first one. That was a 27-21 victory last year in the second round of the playoffs. Last week, Georgetown beat Warner 45-14. St. Thomas lost big time to Lindsey Wilson, 52-24. The Tigers picked up 35 points, just routed Warner in the third quarter alone to pick up that win. Garrick Slunaker back in the saddle, got the start there for the Tigers, and he looks to be back again for Georgetown this week. For St. Thomas, Keely Watson, even with the loss last week, he's averaging 257 passing yards per game, has 5 passing touchdowns and 1 pick for the St. Thomas Bobcats. This one is one of those that should be called, maybe a premier game this week, one of the featured games. This one is up near the top, second meeting between these two programs. Southeastern undefeated. Faulkner is undefeated at 2-0 this year. It's the 10th meeting between these two programs. Southeastern owns a 5-4 edge over Faulkner in the all-time series. They won 34-0 last year. Southeastern beat Reinhardt 41-20 last week, and Faulkner defeated Thomas 22-7 last week. And Southeastern beat Reinhardt. That was a red-out environment. There were a lot of those red-out, blackout, whiteouts last week. Southeastern had the red-out, now on the road, and putting up 40 points per game and more than 400 yards of total offense per game. Faulkner, however, is giving up just 40 rushing yards per contest in its first 2 games. And for Dane Brown, getting the first official win of the Dane Brown era last week at home. Now, there are a couple of things. Let's go ahead and stop right here. We've talked about Georgetown. We've talked about Faulkner. We're going to talk about a few more Mid-South teams. And Henchman 21 likely is not watching us live right now, so he can't get in on the chat. At least he hasn't shown up in the chat yet. I'm going to say something that might be, as Roger says, slanderous to him, but I'm going to say right now, the Mid-South Conference looks like the strongest conference in the NAIA. And I have some numbers that can back that statement up. We talked about Georgetown being 3-0. We talked about Faulkner being 3-0. How about this one? Let's see here. We'll bring up the graph to go with it. Now it's the poll. Let's talk about this. The Mid-South Conference. The Mid-South Conference has 6 of its 7 teams. 86% of its conference is undefeated right now. Now, you could say, well, Joey, that's because, Frontier Conference teams play each other in crossover matchups and in non-conference matchups. And yes, you're right. So the numbers aren't necessarily going to be the same. But even so, you still have to win the games. If you're going to play out of conference, you still have to win the games. Look at Campbellsville, Georgetown, and Lindsey Wilson, the teams that you might think are top 3 in the conference. We've talked about them in the preseason and during the regular season that, they've done nothing to dispel the idea that they would be the top teams in the conference. But look at Cumberland, undefeated. Look at Cumberland's undefeated. Even Faulkner, undefeated. And you see Bethel there with an 0-2 record. Now, I have the asterisk out beside it, and I'm going to present it to you like this. Number one, last week was a forfeit due to weather. We don't know if Bethel was going to be able to play with Kaiser or not. Kaiser did get the first score, 7-0 score, when weather put a stop to everything that was going on. Bethel, the week before, played a Division III program. Now, it's still a game. It's still a loss, but it's a loss to a very tough Mary Hardin Baylor team, a tough team in the state of Texas, and Division III in the state of Texas, tough team equates a tough team. Mary Hardin Baylor, no stranger to the playoffs, no stranger to success in Division III. So there's that to look at. So I'm putting a little asterisk out there by Bethel. Yes, they're 0-2. If you consider this conference as a whole right now, they are 15-2 overall. No other conference can come anywhere close to that particular conference record, composite conference record at this point in the season. And if you take out Bethel, which again, there's that asterisk there, you can't, but if and you did, you're talking about 6 teams that are combined 15-0 right now. It's a pretty impressive record. I would also say this about the Mid-South Conference. So you look at it, where are they getting some of these wins? Well, they have good rosters. They're putting good production together, top to bottom. What Lindsey Wilson has done against 2 very good teams and good programs in Texas Wesleyan in the playoffs last year, St. Thomas in the playoffs last year. Lindsey Wilson was on the outside looking in. They just absolutely left no doubt. So you've got good rosters, good performances all the way around. I would even go so far to say, as you're getting good play from the quarterbacks. For Cumberland, Zach Holtzclaw, who, by the way, if you've looked at his picture online, I mean, he's sporting the Dan Haggerty as Grizzly Adams picture. That's a reference that's going to date me, but, that's all right. If you recognize that, you do. Holtzclaw, putting on a good performance. Cumberland's grad student, twice over, Drew Gregg. What a year he's having so far. And it looks like, he's just going to continue along those lines. For Faulkner, Eli Moore, he's managed the team, but he's taken care of business in his time and led the team to 2-0. For Bethel, I've been talking big about Destin Chance. We don't know really what he has yet, what he doesn't have. He's got the Division III loss, and he has a game in which he was cut short by weather. So not sure what's there. But talk about the teams that have the 3-0 records right there, and the teams that some people, and by the way, if you're a Cumberland fan, you're a Cumberland's fan, you're looking at 2-0 records, and your teams are doing well, don't be frustrated when I say there is an upper tier there at the moment, which you can break into. But these are 3 teams that could easily and are easily in the top 12 in the country right now in Georgetown, Lindsey Wilson, and Campbellsville. And one of the things that stands out about all 3 of those teams right now is that, you know what? The quarterback that was QB1 that we thought would be QB1 coming in hasn't been the one providing all of the time there. You look at Campbellsville, we talked about Jagger Gillis pretty much the entire summer, the offseason, what he means to the team. Yeah, we haven't seen him yet. It's been Chet Engel the whole time. Coming in, transfer from over at Kentucky Christian, steps right in, and he's taking care of business for the Tigers. What about Lindsey Wilson? You got Pryor Lamb out there who has a fantastic game in week 1, and then, he has to step out due to injury. Tate Rice comes in, and what's Tate Rice done? Well, he's thrown 8 touchdown passes in his time, which ties him atop the leaderboard in touchdown passes for the NAI this season. Not bad. Look at Georgetown. Garrick Slunaker in for week 1. Had to step out for a little while in week number 2. Justice Burnham steps in, takes care of business. Saw some time in game 3 for the Tigers as well. Shared that time with Slunaker. But they've been able to get QB2 to come in and see quality time, and they haven't skipped a beat, and they continue to be undefeated. All 3 of those teams at 3-0. You have to look there at that quarterback position and say, well, the coaches, there's a little bit of a comfort zone right there. You don't want to lose that starting quarterback. I'm sure that Coach Russell would be happy when Jagger Gillis can come back in. But what Engel's been able to do in his time has been good. Same for the other quarterbacks. So I think that goes a long way towards saying, you know what? Mid-South might just be the number 1 conference in the country right now. I don't think you can give me evidence to say different, at least through week number 3. So just something to think about there. Hey, by the way, shout out to everyone watching tonight. And if you haven't already, and if you're watching the replay or listening to this while you're driving down the road, you haven't already subscribed to the channel, please do. Please like the video. And we just enjoy talking about small college sports and a whole lot more right here on Midwest Sports Net. Okay, Kaiser on the road at Cumberland, second meeting all time between these two programs, and not unlike what we saw in Georgetown and St. Thomas, the only other meeting between these two schools was a meeting in the playoffs. You have to go back to 2019 for this one. First round matchup between Cumberland's and Kaiser. Cumberland's got the victory then, 28-24. It was the first time that Kaiser had been in the playoffs. Had an undefeated regular season that year. It was just the second year of the program for the Seahawks. Went undefeated through the regular season and then picked up that loss in the first round. So only loss of the year for Kaiser that year. Last week, Kaiser defeated Bethel. That was the forfeit loss we talked about. And Cumberland's over Bluefield 66-12 a couple of weeks ago. Kaiser's been ranked in the NAI coaches rankings in the top 10 since the start of the 2023 season. So congratulations to them for that. They have won 10 of their last 11 in a road or neutral environment. So on the road at Cumberland's for this one. Jaden Miller, 1 game in the books, and he's had 4 rushing touchdowns. For Cumberland's, though, don't doubt what they can do right now. Second in the NAIA, 55.5 points per game. That is what the Patriots are putting up. Kaiser at Cumberland's, that's on Saturday. Weber International picked up a loss after the Stetson win. Got it back, though. That win over Fort Lauderdale last week, 28-0, shut down the Eagles there. Weber International 2-1 on the road at Bethel with that asterisk. You know, there was a little star out there beside that 0-2. They have an 0-2 record right now. Third meeting all time, and the two teams have split it. Bethel won in 2007, 42-21, and in 2004, Weber International won 28-21. How about this? Shout out to our good friends over at Analyze and Educate. Hey, appreciate you stopping by tonight. Thanks a lot. That's really nice. Good to see you in the chat tonight as well. Lots of stats for Weber International. Stetson win, Division I FCS program. UFTL, not even really, I think they may be a USCAA program now, but tough to gauge now what Weber International can do. The only loss was against an NAI program. That was to Campbellsville. Pretty good program also, as we've mentioned already, top 12 in the country. For Bethel, I still don't know what they have. It's tough to scout this team right now. I don't know enough to say this is what we think might happen in this one. Destin Chance, will he get a chance to go out and play a full NAIA game? They'll get a chance to do it at home there in McKenzie. So Weber International at Bethel. Thomas 0-3 at Campbellsville 3-0. First meeting between these two programs. Campbellsville putting up 35.3 points a game, and Jet Engel is there. For Thomas, they've been outscored overall through 3 games, 77-27. So it's a new era there. And Coach Davis looking to try to pick up that first win. Fort Lauderdale, we mentioned the Eagles, they're 0-3, not NAIA, taking on an Ave Maria team that is 0-2, is NAIA. Fourth meeting between the two. The Gyrenes have won all 3 of the previous meetings, 31-7 last year as well. So we'll see. Favorable matchup, I believe, for Ave Maria in this one. This is a good one. Cumberland 2-0 at Pikeville. The Bears are 0-2 on the season. 16th meeting between these two programs. Pikeville with an 8-7 narrow edge in the all-time series. And the Bears won 47-37 in 2022. They've won 4 straight overall in the series right now. Last week, Cumberland beat Ave Maria 55-7. And Pikeville lost a tough one to Campbellsville, 37-34. For Cumberland, Jacob Cornejo, he's been taking care of business from the backfield, 123.5 rushing yards per game, and he averages a touchdown per game as well. For Pikeville, now this is a team that's 0-2. Now remember that when I say this. Quarterback Xavier Malone averaging 422 passing yards per game, tops in the NAIA. Jordan Williams averaging 11 receptions per game. Amon Williams, fantastic running back, averaging 9.5 receptions per game. Did I mention the Bears are 0-2? Just haven't been able to get things to fall. They played a couple of very tough opponents in Georgetown and Campbellsville, top 12 in our media poll there. It's not too late for Pikeville. The Bears went into the playoffs last year. Did I mention they went into the playoffs last year? 5-5 overall, finished 6-6, won a playoff game, and did it on the road last year in Baldwin City. So this is nothing that Coach Phipps and the crew can't handle. But, if you're a Pikeville fan, you just hate to see those losses mounting right there as well. John Moore, shout out to you. Thanks for watching tonight. Thanks for being a part of the chat. Giving a shout out to Rio Grande, the Red Storm. We'll mention them a little bit later on. But thanks for being a part of the broadcast tonight. And I encourage everyone, just continue to help the community grow. Kentucky Christian on the road at Morehead State. 7th meeting between the two. Morehead State's won all 6 of the previous meetings, including a 48-7 drubbing last season. Kentucky Christian lost a tough one to Taylor, 42-35 last week. And Morehead State, 1-2 on the year, lost to Austin P by 49. For Kentucky Christian, in the loss, though, Jackson Wasick, who's taken over that starting role at quarterback, 325 passing yards and 3 touchdowns in the loss. The Knights are 2-1 on the season, trying to pick up a win in a very tough place. Won't factor in their conference record, but you still want to pick up that win if you can for Coach Aubrey. Clayton State, another USCAA team, on the road at Point. Clayton State 1-1 on the year. Point is 0-3. It's the first meeting between these two programs. Clayton State lost to Central Georgia Tech, another USCAA team. And by the way, if you're unfamiliar with that particular acronym, it's I think in the overall hierarchy of things, you would say it would be a step or two below where the NAIA is. Point with an opportunity here, and the schedule for the Skyhawks has just been tough. A loss to Faulkner, but then a loss to Division III LaGrange, and a loss to Division II Newberry, and Clayton State's not even in the NAIA either, so it's going to be, a challenge for Point until they get around to taking on some teams in the Appalachian Athletic Conference. This one is a big one, despite the Eagles' 1-2 record here. Lindsey Wilson, undefeated at 3-0. Reinhardt, the Eagles 1-2. 6th meeting between the two. Reinhardt with the 3-2 advantage in the all-time series. Last time these two teams met, it was in the first round of the playoffs in 2022, and a 1-point win for Lindsey Wilson, 23-22. The Blue Raiders defeated St. Thomas last week, 52-24. And Reinhardt lost to the Fire of Southeastern, 41-20. We talked about Tate Rice a little earlier. Yeah, 8 touchdown passes for the season. He's at the top of that list in the NAI. Now he shares that top spot with a few other quarterbacks, but right up there at the top. Kai Sherrard, 6 receiving touchdowns. He's also at the top of that particular list. He's had 12 catches this year. 6 of them have been for touchdowns, averaging 30.2 yards every single time he catches the ball. For Reinhardt, it's the 3rd straight year to start a season 1-2. Braylon Jones made some noise last week, even in the loss, the AAC Defensive Player of the Week. Olivet Nazarene, undefeated at 2-0. On the road at Indiana Wesleyan there in Marion, seventh meeting between the two. Indiana Wesleyan 5-1 all-time in the series and shut out the Tigers last year, 69-0 in 2024. Olivet Nazarene beat Madonna a couple of weeks ago, 46-13. Indiana Wesleyan beat Judson 79-21. That was last week. So the Wildcats of Indiana Wesleyan 2-1 on the year. Tigers of Olivet Nazarene 2-0. Christian Dew Reed, 246 passing yards per game, 6 touchdowns on the season to just 1 pick. And he's averaging 13.7 yards every time he throws the ball. Every attempt. Not even completed passes. I mean, it's better than first down every time that Dew Reed gets the ball and steps back to throw it. For Indiana Wesleyan, 47 points per game. That's 6th in the NAI. Arjun Lothi with 875 passing yards on the season, and there's that 8 passing touchdowns as well. He's right up there at the top. Lawrence Tech, 0-2. St. Francis of Illinois, 0-2. Fourth meeting between the two. The Fighting Saints have won all 3 of the previous, including 46-7 in 2024. And one of these teams not only is going to get a win this year, they're going to get a win dating back to last year. The Blue Devils are on a 4-game losing streak right now. The Fighting Saints on a 3-game losing streak right now. Somebody's going to pick up a win on Saturday. We'll see who that is. I know a team that picked up a win last Saturday, and it was the first time that it ever happened on the field. And yes, we did talk about this more than once during the summer, that Coach Gaminsky's Madonna Crusaders would win a game or games in 2025, and they proved Midwest Sportsnet right in that prediction already with 1 game in the books. Madonna defeated Division III Olivet 45-28 last week, and St. Xavier lost to a Division III opponent 37-0 in Wisconsin Whitewater. It's the 3rd meeting between Madonna and St. Xavier, and, well, St. Xavier won the previous 2. Obviously, Madonna hadn't won one on the field yet. Won last year, 55-13. Only the 2nd time in school history that the Crusaders have entered a game with a better record than their opponent. And Roger Meyer may not want to hear this one. So, Roger, I'm going to give this to you anyway. They are coming into the contest with St. Xavier, 1-1. St. Xavier 0-2 on the year. So, Madonna has a better record. In 2021, Madonna was 1-1. Granted, it was a win by forfeit, but Madonna was 1-1, and they entered the game versus Marion. The Knights were 0-1 at the time. Now, the Knights did take care of business and beat Madonna in that game. MU versus MU, by the way. But, yeah, 2nd time that Madonna has entered a game with a better record than their opponent. The Crusaders have Nathan Patterson, the freshman, the hometown boy from Livonia, in at quarterback. St. Xavier, the Cougars need to win. Shut out last week, so that was a tough one. And Robert, you're here. Go Bulldogs. Just got here. Even though they're on a bye week. Doesn't matter. That's all right. Cheer them on. Cheer them on anyway. Shout out to Robert. Thanks for showing up tonight. Appreciate that. All right, we continue on along. Rio Grande. There you go, John. Rio Grande 0-2 at Ferris State 3-0. First meeting between these two programs. And by the way, what a brutal schedule for Rio Grande. Lost to Georgetown last week, 48-0. The Red Storm have given up 48 points in each of the first 2 games. Now, John, it's a first-year program. We get it. So we're not throwing down here. But Ferris State is the defending national champion in NCAA Division II. Won the national championship in Division II in 2024. Oh, by the way, Ferris State won the national championship in 2022. Oh, by the way, Ferris State won the national championship in 2021. I think I saw that game too. I think I was actually at that game against, would have been West Florida. I think so. I'll check on that. Somebody will prove me wrong if I wasn't. That is a brutal start to your schedule if you are a first-year program to go out and have to face that. So there we go. All right. Going to give this there. Had a good week of practice. So you're getting ready for Kentucky Christian. Well, you first have to go on the road and take on Ferris State. And I will say this, for Ferris State, it's a favorable matchup. There we go. That's all we're going to say about that one. All right. How about going to the heart now? Grandview 2-0. Baker 0-2. Didn't have that on my 2025 bingo card for the Wildcats to be 0-2. Ninth meeting between the two programs. 5-3. Grandview owns the all-time advantage and won 24-0 back in 2023. Won 5 straight in the series after Baker won the first 3 in this series. So last week, Grandview defeated Missouri Baptist 49-17. That was a little bit bigger margin than I thought it might be. William Penn took care of business against Baker 24-13. Grandview now, the winning streak in the regular season has grown to 62 consecutive games. By the way, those are also all Heart Conference games as well. Grandview's winning streak is now 16 straight overall, dating back to the 14-0 run in 2024. 74-5 since the start of the 2019 season. The Vikings. It's going to be tough for Baker. Can the Wildcats right the ship? We've talked about different players for Grandview. I don't think we've talked about Dalton Van Pelt yet, so we'll put him in the preview. 2 rushing touchdowns last week. So Dalton Van Pelt to lead the way, the ground attack for Grandview. For Baker, Truman Julesgaard averaging just 157 yards per game passing, and on the season has 1 touchdown through the air, 4 interceptions as well. That's a part of the Wildcat ship that needs to be corrected if Baker is going to pick up a win on Saturday, and it is a challenge on the road there. All right, so here we go. Let's drop this one up there for Roger. Week 1 in the loss against D2 Tiffin. First play is 2 deep as a junior. Wow. That was, started the rest of the season through the quarterfinal. How about that? Well, good job. Good story, Roger. I appreciate you sharing that. So there we go. Wanted to put that one up there as well. Glad Roger is along for the ride, the live part tonight. How about Graceland? 1-1. Missouri Baptist is going to be hosting Graceland in this one. Second meeting all time between the two. Missouri Baptist won last season 32-20. That was the 10th game of the year, and I believe that was the game in which Gerald Monroe got hurt. So Missouri Baptist with a win in that one. Graceland lost to Benedictine last week 52-29. Missouri Baptist, we mentioned, lost to Grandview 49-17. Graceland's averaging 50 points a game. Good enough for 4th in the nation in the NAIA. C.J. Brooks with 8 passing touchdowns. There's that number again at the top of the leaderboard right there. Javon Minor, 167.5 rushing yards per game. That is at the top of the NAIA as well, and Minor has a couple of rushing touchdowns. Gerald Monroe, 5 receiving touchdowns, tied for 2nd in the NAIA in that category, and he also has passed for a touchdown as well. Jacob Jones, one of 4 players on that Missouri Baptist roster named Jones. He's the Jacob variety, averaging 242 passing yards a game. He's had 3 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. And Charles, better late than never. Well, you got here at the right time to hear about Graceland, so you want to go back just a little bit. I'll mention again C.J. Brooks, 8 passing touchdowns at the top of the list in the NAIA. This one's going to be a tough one for Graceland on the road in St. Louis, and we'll see what Coach Burianek's team has. Again, Graceland trying to avenge the loss from last season. Benedictine 2-1 at Clark 0-3. 6th meeting between the two schools. Benedictine has won all 5 of the previous meetings, including a 63-14 win 2 years ago in 2023. Jackson Dooley, 8 passing touchdowns. I think there are 5 quarterbacks at that spot. 8 passing touchdowns in the NAIA. Clark struggling at 0-3. Hey, we'll take this time to say, stick around to the end. We've already talked about the news so far, but we did want to go back to our Bet the Barn segment again. And I want to see what side would you take? If you had to bet the barn, what would you bet it on? We have some prop bets coming up. And since Vegas has no lines on the NAI, we'll throw out some number as well. We're not throwing out line bets, not picking favorites in this one, but we'll throw out some prop bets as well. So stick around for that one. If you haven't already subscribed to the channel, may I tell you, the channel is growing, and I appreciate that so much. I say we often because there are a lot of folks here in the Midwest Sportsnet household that contribute to what you see me getting to talk about here on a Thursday night, Sunday night, and wherever else during the week you may happen to see it. So there's a lot of we, and it's all about we. But I also present to you that we include you. and you mean a lot to the channel. So we're growing the channel, and it is growing, and I encourage you, tell a friend, because it's a pretty cool channel. All right, Peru State, 2-1, Bobcats. Still not sure what to make of the Bobcats yet. I do know this. They have a winning record right now for Coach Akingay. Central Methodist 1-2. Coach Brown gets his first win of the season last week, defeating St. Ambrose 38-20. 14th meeting between the Bobcats and the Eagles, and Central Methodist 8-5 all-time advantage. Peru State won last year, though, 35-3. Peru State coming off a win, doubling up Missouri Valley last week, 16-8. The Bobcats have 25 points combined in the loss to Panhandle State and the win over St. Ambrose, or the win over Missouri Valley, sorry. 31 points by themselves in the win over Baker. So, again, it's tough to see really what this team is. I think it's been up and down over the 3 weeks. 2 wins, though, so there you go. For Central Methodist, 1-10 in 2024, 1-10 in 2023, 1-10 in 2022. The Eagles now have a win. Here's the thing. For Coach Brown, this team needs to pick up at least one more win. Show something different in 2025, something to build on. I know that there's improvement behind the scenes, but you always want to get that one more victory, at least in the win column. You've already matched what you've done in the previous 3 seasons. William Woods, the Owls are 0-3 to start 25 on the road to take on a St. Ambrose team in Davenport, Iowa, that's also 0-3 on the road. Second meeting between the two, and the Fighting Bees won last year 52-13 before going on a 6-game losing streak. William Woods lost to Culver Stockton last week by just 2, a field goal at the end. And St. Ambrose lost to Central Methodist. Again, we talked about the first win of the season for the Eagles. For William Woods, Clayton Byer, get this number, 254.7 passing yards per game. 6 passing touchdowns on the season. Good numbers there for an 0-3 team. However, 8 interceptions, and he leads the NAIA in that category. That can't help your team. So Byer has to find the players with his colored jersey a little more often. He's done it 6 times already to get them into the end zone for the score. Byer, the quarterback for William Woods. His counterpart for St. Ambrose, Alec Ponder, 316.3 passing yards per game. And I want to remind you here at this point, with Alec Ponder, 316.3 passing yards per game, that's 5th in the NAIA. Let's go back to Xavier Malone. Tops in the NAIA, 422 passing yards per game for Malone. 2 of the top 5 quarterbacks in passing yards per game have no wins so far to their collective record. Pikeville 0-2 for the Bears, and St. Ambrose 0-3 right now. So it goes beyond just that quarterback spot. It has to be a team issue. Can St. Ambrose pick up the win at home against the Owls on Saturday? Again, 0-3 for both those teams. Missouri Valley 1-1 after losing to Peru State last week. Culver Stockton 2-1. Defeating those William Woods Owls last week on a last-second field goal. For Missouri Valley, Tamel Staples, who has transferred within conference. He's the transfer from St. Ambrose. He's in at starting quarterback for Culver Stockton. Chicorian Wiggles, he has led the way for Culver Stockton from the receiver position last week. 4 catches, 2 of them for touchdowns, had 112 receiving yards last week. Still in the heart, Mid-America Nazarene 3-0. Nice start for the Pioneers under Coach Cordova in his first season. William Penn and Coach Benavidez 3-0. The big win last week over Baker. And this series is tight. 10th meeting coming up on Saturday. The Pioneers 5-4 all time. Defeated the Statesmen 29-20 back in 2023. Last week, Mid-America Nazarene put up nearly doubling Clark 51-26, and William Penn with that 11-point victory over Baker. For William Penn, it's the first 3-0 start since 2012. And Destin Loring, how about him? Loring with 140 rushing yards per game, tied for 6th in the NAIA. He has 8 rushing touchdowns as well. The Pioneers going on the road once again before it starts getting into Hart South play. Let's go to the GPAC, where we see Waldorf at 0-3. On the road at Hastings. The Broncos 1-2. Each of these teams lost last week. It was a shutout. Waldorf shut out by Midland, 53-0 for Hastings. Tight one against a very tough Briar Cliff team, 2016. Second meeting all time between these two. Hastings won last year, 43-10. Waldorf shut out for the second time in 3 games last week. For Hastings, Caden Merriman, one of a number of players in that backfield who can run the ball well. Last week, 8 carries, 82 yards for 2 rushing touchdowns. Northwestern, after the loss against Briar Cliff, 1-1 at Dakota Wesleyan, just 1 win for the Tigers as well, 1-2. 26th meeting between the two. The Red Raiders have won 21 of the first 25. Again, lost to Mount Marty last week, 24-14. Dakota Wesleyan lost to Concordia, 27-22. And the change has been made. Colby Duncan in at QB1 now in the 2 deep as Bo Bush struggled last week. Duncan came in, but still Mount Marty able to get the victory there. So a different look now for Northwestern heading into this Saturday's game on the road. Midland at Morningside. The Warriors 2-1. The Mustangs 1-1. Excuse me. Sorry about that, Dave. Don't want to give another loss to Morningside right now. 27th meeting between these two programs. Morningside 24-2 all time, looking to make it 25-2 all time. This is one of those games that you may stick around. We might talk about it in the Bet the Barn segment as well. So just a little bit of a tease right there. Morningside won 28-21 last season, just a 7-point victory. Midland put up 53 and shut out Waldorf last week. The defense has played really well in each of the last 2 games, giving up just 7 points total. Morningside defeated Briar Cliff in the Mustangs' last outing a couple of weeks ago, 58-17. For Morningside, Zach Chevalier, 363 passing yards per game, just behind Xavier Malone, second in that category. He has 11.5 yards for every time he throws the ball. So better than first down there. They want to put it in his hands and see if he can find Drew Sellen, 154 receiving yards per game. That also is second in the NAIA. He has 3 receiving touchdowns. And how about the ground game? We have triplets for the Mustangs. Max Huff, 148 rushing yards per game, 4th in the NAIA in that category, and a couple of rushing touchdowns as well. Don't sleep on Morningside's defense, but the offense is putting it together and putting lots of points on the board. It could be a challenge for the 2-1 Midland Warriors on Saturday. This one's in Sioux City. Briar Cliff going on the road for the first time in 3 games. 2-1 the record, though, and they head to Mount Marty for the Catholic Cup. This one's going to be under the lights in September. 5th meeting between these two, and Mount Marty, interestingly enough, with a 3-1 record all-time against Briar Cliff. The Lancers now just in year 5, won 36-21 in 2024 and won 3 straight in the series after Briar Cliff took the opening matchup between these two. Briar Cliff has won 9 of its last 14 games. Excuse me, that is wrong. That is Mount Marty that has won 9 of its last 14 games. First real challenge of the night? That's all right. Mount Marty's won 9 of its last 14 games, year 5 of the program. For Briar Cliff, Brock Saya, 312.3 passing yards per game. And get this, 72.8% completion percentage there. We talk about the dual sports star in rugby, Riken, and he's putting together his own legend there at Mount Marty. And again, the Lancers have won 9 of their last 14 games heading into year 5. How about this one? Not as many games in the GPAC. So we go to the KCAC. St. Mary 0-3, Avila 0-3. Good place to start. 8 meeting between the two, and Avila has won all 7 of the previous meetings, including a 32-24 victory in 2024's season finale for the two teams. St. Mary lost to Bethany last week. Avila lost to Kansas Wesleyan last week. Eric Covington, 8 passing touchdowns. Now, we've already dropped that 8 passing touchdowns 4 times tonight. Eric Covington, one of those players with 8 passing touchdowns, and yet his team hasn't picked up a win yet. That's a tough one. Cameron Smith, by the way, too, 123.3 rushing yards per game, 2 rushing touchdowns. He's in the top 10 in rushing yards per game, and the Spires still yet to pick up the victory, trying to do it on the road in Kansas City at Avila. Sterling 0-3 at Bethany, and the Swedes picked up win number 1 of the season last week with a win over those Spires, 48-34, Bethany over St. Mary. Sterling lost to Ottawa 51-20 last week, and it's the 80th meeting between these two programs. Bethany leading this series 48-30 and one tie as well. The Swedes won last year 35-14. Friends at 3-0. Tabor at 1-2. Blue Jays have played tough, still come up with a couple of losses. 58th meeting between the two, and Friends dominating in this series. 41-16, the all-time lead for the Falcons, and they shut out the Blue Jays last year 24-0. Friends beat Bethel 62-0 last week. Tabor lost to a very tough McPherson team 49-7. For Friends, 65.7 points a game, tops in the NAI. Third straight start under Terry Harrison. 1,585, that's 1,585 total rushing yards, 528.3 rushing yards per game. They're on pace for 5,811. For Tabor, A.J. King, though, 5 receiving touchdowns, second in the NAI in that category. And he's going to find himself in the Blue Jays going up against a very tough Falcon defense. How about Southwestern, 2-1? Ottawa, 2-1. 68th meeting between the two. The series is relatively tight. The Braves lead 35-30 with 2 ties all time. Southwestern won 27-21 last year. Tight contest. Southwestern losing to Evangel by 10 last week, only loss of the season. Ottawa defeated Sterling last week, 31-20. And the Braves got fantastic defensive play last week. 11 team sacks, including 6.5 from Tegan Flynn. Let's say that again. Tegan Flynn had 6.5 sacks to his credit last week. We talked about this on Sunday, that we may see if those numbers may change, and they did in fact change. So Tegan Flynn, big time effort for him and the Braves. He's going to need that against a very strong Southwestern offense. Jamie Odom, 8 passing touchdowns. Have we heard that number tonight? Yeah, tops in the NAI in that category. Matthew Holthusen, the all-time leader in receptions for Southwestern, 127 receiving yards per game. So the Bulldogs and the Braves, that's on Saturday. Both teams looking to go 3-1 with a win. Here about 2 more teams that are looking to go 4-0 with a win. McPherson, 3-0. Evangel, 3-0. Third meeting between the two. They've split. McPherson won last year 34-27, and Evangel won 17-7 in 2023. We may, and I will tell you, we will talk about this game in the Bet the Barn segment a little bit later on. Oh, by the way, if you're going out to Nixa to watch this game, which Nixa is just a little ways south of Springfield, it's where Evangel plays its game. If you're going out to Nixa to watch this game, there's going to be a drone show to follow the game. That's cool. I like that. That's neat. So, go on out there and be a part of that. McPherson, Ryan Markanian. Oh, there's number 2 right there. 23 of 29 passing for 255 yards, 2 touchdowns, and no interceptions last week. Jaleel Brown last week, 16 carries for 125 yards and 2 rushing touchdowns. But Evangel is putting up 49.3 points per game, 5th in the NAI. Reed Potts, 235 passing yards per game, 7 passing touchdowns. So close to that 8 passing touchdowns. 72.7 completion percentage. By the way, 7 passing touchdowns, 1 interception. And Eric Williams, 149 rushing yards per game, 3rd in the NAI. 6 rushing touchdowns, too. It's the points they're putting up, but it's also the yards. These are 2 of the top 6 teams in the country in total offense. Evangel logging 564.7 yards of total offense a game. McPherson, 519.7 yards of total offense a game. So that's a lot. You think that's probably going to show up in the Bet Barn section? You'd probably be right. One more from the KCAC. Kansas Wesleyan 3-0 on the road in North Newton. Bethel 0-3. 84th meeting between the two. Kansas Wesleyan more than doubling the win total there, 56-25-2 all time, and the Coyotes won 21-6 in 2024. Last week, Kansas Wesleyan defeated Avila. Last week, Bethel lost to Friends. Kansas Wesleyan has Henry Ostad, who's making himself at home in Salina. 23 of 39 passing for 225 passing yards last week. Had a passing touchdown and 2 rushing touchdowns. And don't forget about Will Wilcox, 9 catches for 102 yards last week. Bethel shut out last week, And the Threshers had 7 points in the previous game and 7 points in the previous game. So Bethel trying to get some offense going. We go to the Frontier now. And how about that? Let me stop really quickly and say, if you haven't let us know in the chat that you're here yet, please do. Tell us either from where you're watching or for what team you are cheering. And if you haven't yet subscribed, please subscribe. We'll tell you a little bit more about the goals. I want to talk about the goals sometime. I don't know if we'll do it tonight or not, but we do have some goals for this channel. And subscribers, yeah, we actually have some goals for that as well. We met our initial goal, years ago with the 1,000, but we want to go a little bit higher than that, and we do it with your help. So that's the shameless self-promotion plug right there. Let's go ahead and talk about the Comets. How about those Comets? I've mentioned before that I am a former Comet, high school Comet, but, that's just a big part of it. But definitely want to mention the Mayville State Comets. And I want to make Casey Willison happy. So let's talk about the Comets tonight and say they're 2-1. And they have one of the longest trips of the weekend, but not the longest. They're heading out to Northern California, Redding, California, to be precise, to take on Simpson. The Comets 2-1, Simpson 0-3. First meeting between these two programs. It's a crossover matchup in the Frontier. Last week, Mayville State defeated Division III, or last time out, defeated Division III. Nebraska Wesleyan 2013 took overtime to get it done. Simpson lost to Pacific Lutheran 42-16. Mayville State had a point after blocked by Nebraska Wesleyan and then run back for two, a 3-point swing that really is ultimately what put the game in a position where the Prairie Wolves could send it to overtime. So Mayville State got away with that one. 226 team rushing yards. And that they're going to try to put the ball on the ground there again, not on the turf and give it up, but it's going to be a rushing attack. Simpson's giving up only 152.5 rushing yards per game. So this one, again, might be a favorable matchup for the Comets in that sense. For Simpson, Caleb Anderson or John Moreno, someone has to step up and help put points on the board for the Red Hawks, who are scoring just 8 points a game. And that is in the last couple of games. Put up, just the 16 against Pacific Lutheran. So first meeting between these two. And here we go. Actually, a shout out from Edmond, Oklahoma in this one, Robert. I wasn't even thinking about that. From Edmond, cheering for Concordia from Edmond. Shared the channel on Facebook earlier this week. Thanks, Robert. Appreciate that. And, there are 3 teams in Edmond that you can cheer for as well if you're giving a shout out too. So lots of good football played in Edmond. Oh, by the way, and I don't know, Robert, you probably know this too. There's a lot of good volleyball that is played in Edmond. It is a pipeline for Division II programs, NAIA programs throughout Oklahoma and surrounding states. So fantastic place to talk about volleyball. We're talking about football tonight, but just to let you know. But thanks for the shout out on Facebook a little bit earlier this week. I appreciate that. Concordia not playing, though, this week, so we can't talk about your Bulldogs. Like you said, it's a bye week for them. And I enjoy talking about Coach Daverco. I'll even mention him on a bye week. Definitely, it's a big thing. And I tried to put Gideon Stark into somebody else's notes earlier this week too, so forgive me on that. Maybe I just had Concordia on the brain there. Dakota State 1-1 at Arizona Christian. First meeting between the two. We said Mayville State at Simpson was the second longest trip of the weekend. This one is the longest. Dakota State traveling all the way down to Glendale in Arizona for this meeting. First meeting between the two, and Dakota State with a win the last time out, interestingly enough, against Nebraska Wesleyan as well. Arizona Christian lost to Division II Fort Lewis 58-10. For the Trojans, Rayshawn Eaton, he has stepped into that starting role a couple of weeks ago, had a couple of passing touchdowns and a rushing touchdown against the Prairie Wolves. For Arizona Christian, it's a big contest for the Firestorm. Making the move to the Frontier Conference, ACU hasn't seen as much success. It's been challenging at best. Last week against Division II program, and they're 0-1. I say last week, last time out. Fumble on the very first play from scrimmage. That turned it into points eventually. There were 3 fumbles, and all of them turned into scores, including one of them that was a scoop and score. The Firestorm also had 3 interceptions, which one of them was a pick six. So need to hold on to the ball against the Trojans, and I'm sure that's a big part of the game plan. If Dakota State can force some turnovers in this one on the road, that would go a long way for the Trojans, trying to pick up win number 2 on the year. How about Carroll 1-1, taking on Dickinson State? This is a big-time matchup between two programs that perennially will be seen playing in the postseason. 24th meeting between the two. Carroll's won 18 of the first 23. Won twice in 2013. That's back, I believe, when they were playing the same conference. 45-7 and 48-3. And Carroll has won 10 straight in this series. So the Blue Hawks trying to stop that trend this week. They get a chance to do it at home in North Dakota. Carroll faces the number 11 team in the country for the second consecutive week. How about that for numbers? Montana Tech, to whom they lost last week, by the way, 30-19, was the number 11 team in the country last week. Dickinson State, the number 11 team this week, defeated Montana State Northern 33-16. For Carroll, Caden Hewitt needs to get the offense going early. For Dickinson State, Marcus Sanders, QB1, he's trying to continue the winning ways in his time at the helm. Jack Hartman, by the way, for the Blue Hawks, has 3 interceptions himself already in 2025. And the Pete Stanton count continues. Dickinson State head coach Pete Stanton, 97-29 all-time as the head coach for Dickinson State. So he is 3 games from the century mark, trying to pick up number 98 against a perennial power in Carroll. Montana Western, 1-1. Rocky Mountain, 0-2. 111th meeting. Yes, 111th meeting between these two programs. Montana Western, 63-46-1 all-time, and won by 18 last year, 42-24. Montana Western, it's been a week. It was 2 weeks ago that they defeated Northern 58-0. Rocky Mountain lost to that tough Montana Tech team. Again, number 5 in the media poll, 34-28. Montana Western has Michael Palandri throwing for 359.5 yards per game. That's 3rd in the NAIA. He's thrown 7 touchdowns to no interceptions. We'll come back to that in just a second. 76.5% completion percentage for him. He's been effective. He's one of only 2 quarterbacks that have thrown for 200 yards or more this season per game, averaging at least 200 yards per game throwing with 0 interceptions. The other one's on a bye week this week. That's Noah Strickfaden from Dordt, right around 209 passing yards per game. Well, Palandri's doing it at 359.5 yards per game, 7 touchdowns, no picks. He is having himself a season so far. He finds Eli Norse quite a bit, 145.5 receiving yards per game, and averaging 10 receptions per game as well. For Rocky Mountain, Darius Haskin, well, he's one of their quality receivers for the Battling Bears, 165.5 receiving yards per game, and that is at the top of the NAIA list for receiving touchdowns for him. Big matchup for Rocky Mountain at home, taking on Montana Western. Those Diggers, how about those Diggers from Butte? They're 3-0. That's how about. Montana Tech on the road, traveling to Ashland, Oregon to take on Southern Oregon. And the Raiders are 1-1 on the season. 20th meeting between these two programs. Montana Tech owns a 12-7 lead all time, won by 7 last year, 42-35. Tech defeated Rocky Mountain 34-23 last week. Southern Oregon 2 weeks ago. Yeah, it's been 2 weeks since we've talked about the Raiders. Lost to Western Oregon 37-7. For the Diggers, Wakees Johnson, 161.3 rushing yards per game, 2nd in the NAIA there, 5 rushing touchdowns. Jace Thompson, the senior defensive back, had not 1 but 2 blocked kicks last week in Dig City, helping his team with the win. And Jarrett Wilson, we talked about that 2-quarterback system with Coach Sampson a couple of weeks ago. Well, he played the whole game against Rocky Mountain last week and led his team to a win. For Southern Oregon, the player I'm looking to see how he comes out in this one, had a week to rest and get himself together. 64.6% completion for Dom Montiel, the D1 transfer, averaging 319 passing yards per game through 2 games, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions versus Simpson in week 1. And then the next week, no touchdowns and 3 interceptions against Western Oregon. Now, again, you're playing a program that's just in year 2. In Simpson, you're playing a program that's Division 2 in Western Oregon and a rival there. So we'll see which Dom Montiel we get against Montana Tech in this one. He's going to be at home, and he's had a couple of weeks to rest. So That is the matchup there. Valley City State at Eastern Oregon. Another one on the road in Oregon. This one's at LeGrand. First meeting between these two teams. Valley City State defeated Augsburg 27-0 last week. And Eastern Oregon beat Whitworth, a couple of NAI over D3 teams, 16-10, as the Mountaineers able to hold on for a victory there. Valley City State won their version of the Ag Bowl, 7th edition of that last week. 6 out of 7 times Valley City State has won in the Ag Bowl. Joey Cave, they didn't need him for that much of it last week, so he wasn't out there for too long. 11 for 13 passing, though. How about those numbers? 11 for 13, threw for 108 passing yards and 1 touchdown, no picks. Also, they let him carry the ball 16 times, picked up 75 yards and a touchdown, too. First trip to LeGrand, the home of the number 1 Mountaineer volleyball team. Yeah, volleyball showing up in this college football tonight more than once. Eastern Oregon, number 1 team in the country in volleyball. Elia Kirisimasi, 35 of 55 passing for the season, closing in on 70% there. 383 passing yards for 2025. Has 1 passing touchdown, no interceptions, but has 3 rushing touchdowns as well. Montana State Northern, they're on 3. College of Idaho, they're undefeated at 2-0. 12th meeting, College of Idaho has won all 11 previous meetings, and I will say this, it is a favorable matchup for the Yotes. 28-7, victors in 2024. Montana State Northern has won 1 or fewer games. You don't have to go too far to find fewer games there. Has won 1 or fewer games every year starting in 2015. For Montana State Northern, the Lights had Kendall O'Neill with his first touchdown pass of the season for the Lights, and the first rushing touchdown came from Roman Bradley last week as the Lights put up 16 points in a loss to Dickinson State. Rocky Mountain College of Idaho's opponent 2 weeks ago, 37-20. That was the final there. For the Yotes, Caden Young picking up where he left off at the end of last season. 245 passing yards per game this year, 3 passing touchdowns per game this year. To the Sooner Athletic Conference as we start to wrap up our trek through the Week 4 slate. Langston's 0-3. Texas College is 0-3. Somebody gets a win this weekend. 53rd meeting between the Lions and the Steers. Langston's won 36, Texas College 15. They tied once as well. Langston won by 10 in 2024. And get this, the Langston Lions have won 20 consecutive matchups against Texas College. Both teams lost last week. Both teams lost big time. Langston has had 31 points, but 20 in 3 games, but 24 of them came against Louisiana Christian in a 7-point loss. They've had 7 points combined against Division I Grambling and Division I UT Rio Grande Valley. We'll talk about UTRGV again in a moment. Texas College has faced Langston more than any other opponent. Again, the 53rd meeting between the two. And for the Steers, 7-4 last year. They're 0-3 in 2025. I mentioned UT Rio Grande Valley. Well, first meeting between the Vaqueros and the Rams of Texas Wesleyan. And Texas Wesleyan in Fort Worth is going to travel what feels like a day to get all the way down to Edinburgh and Brownsville, Texas. I mean, you want to talk about South. And I'll play my Texas card here, okay? I was born in Corpus Christi, Texas. That's pretty far south. Lived there for a few years. Then made my way to Oklahoma and been here ever since. That's pretty far south. And then there's Kingsville. That's farther south than Corpus Christi. Texas A&M Kingsville used to be Texas A&I, and I mean a dominant program in the 60s and 70s in NAIA football. One of the best. Absolutely. I mean, legendary Texas A&I in Kingsville. And they're still not as far south as UT Rio Grande Valley. Edinburgh and Brownsville are right there on the border. And I mean, you're getting close to the very tip of the point of Texas. And then there's a sign that says, here there be dragons or something. I don't know. You just going to the far south there. Texas Wesleyan has to travel a long way to see if they can get that ground game going. As a team averaging just 101 rushing yards per game, just 4 yards per rush, giving up 6.9 yards per rush there as well. So big matchup for Texas Wesleyan. we'll see what happens. How they come out of this doesn't matter for their playoff opportunity necessarily. I mean, still, if you run through the Sooner Athletic Conference and they're 1-0 in conference right now, you can make something happen. Louisiana Christian, 2-1 overall at D3 Hardin-Simmons, another Division III school in Texas. 20th meeting between these two. Hardin-Simmons has won 14 of the previous 19, including a 51-6 victory back in 2019. For Louisiana Christian, Darian Cunningham, 30 carries for 157 yards and a couple rushing touchdowns in the win last week. And Levi Hilborn, the kicker, he's done great job. Special teams player of the year in the Sooner Athletic Conference. 1-for-1 field goals last week. It was very important. 4-for-4 on PAT. He had 7 points in a 6-point win. For Hardin-Simmons, they're in Brownwood, Texas. And actually, I was a youth pastor in one of those multi-campus churches, and one of the campuses was in Brownwood. So I've been there a time or two. No, wait, that's Howard Payne. Anyway, it's a place to be. Brownwood, Texas. They call themselves the Heart of Texas. Hardin-Simmons, a very tough program there. Louisiana Christian taking them on. And finally, OUAZ, actually next to the last, as we get to my last page here. OUAZ 2-0 at Oklahoma Panhandle State, 1-1. 8th meeting between the two. Spirits won 6 all time, and including the last 6 of these meetings between the two. 55-14. Luke Giron, 242 passing yards per game. He's had 5 passing touchdowns and 1 rushing touchdown this year. Oklahoma Panhandle State, 5 points a game against Peru State and East Texas Baptist. The offense has to try to make something happen in this one. Nelson, 0-2 at Arkansas Baptist in Little Rock. 5th meeting between the two. The Lions of Nelson have won the previous 4 meetings, including a 31-point victory last year. And Wayland Baptist at Howard Payne. There's your Brownwood reference. I knew there was a Brownwood reference in here. At Howard Payne, the Pioneers are 0-2. Howard Payne 2-0. 6th meeting between the two. And Wayland Baptist, the NAIA school, has a 3-2 lead in the all-time series. Wayland Baptist won 40-37 back in 2016. Kalen Davis, the freshman from Denton, Texas, 32-58 passing for the year. 3 touchdowns, but has 3 interceptions as well, trying to clean that up. And Isaiah Brooks, the senior linebacker, he's the leading tackler on the team, had 9.5 tackles for loss in 2024, already has 2 tackles for loss now, so picking up where he left off. And that is week 4. We made it through the whole of week 4, and looking over at the chat right now, so we'll put this up here really quickly. No rush for the question. Mentioned a D1 transfer to an NAIA school. A couple of those instances around the league. Do you feel like NIL and the transfer portal? I'm sorry, Robert. I promise I can speak, but we're past the 1 hour mark now. NIL and the transfer portal will help. Honestly, I'm glad you say no rush on this question, because it's a tough one to figure out. It really is. And I think we need another year here. And also there's another factor that's kicked in. And the NCAA, I believe it was yesterday, I think it's been just a day, that they announced that they're moving from 2 transfer portal windows to just 1. And that's going to change things a lot. So players aren't going to have a chance to jump ship after spring practices like they did, which, players trying to make things better, and coaches, I think some of them were happy to have that spring portal window too, because you go through the spring and you look and you say, hey, we don't have what we thought we had. Maybe we pick somebody else up later. They're not going to get that chance. So I'd love to table that question, and let's talk about it over the course of the season, Robert, and see if it makes a difference this year. But I don't think we're going to know really as much. I think we probably could know something by the end of this year, but then it's going to change with next year. So that's a good question for the spring. But I love the question. I think it's a great question. And again, to go with it, the NAIA as a whole in the future, it's something there. The NAIA, here's the thing about that. And I would say this just to that point, and then we'll get to our Bet the Barn segment, is that, again, there's no transfer portal in the NAIA. Okay, players in the NAIA can't jump in the quote-unquote transfer portal. There's a transfer market, and players who are in the transfer portal in the NCAA can find a team in the NAIA. They can land on a team in the NAIA, but they're not jumping into an NAIA transfer portal. They just announce, hey, I'd like to go play for somebody else. We've already seen that in season this year. And you can look to someone who was on the roster for Georgetown Tigers, already said online, hey, I'm available. I'm open. Somebody pick me up. So that is something that's happened. But it's also one of those things that NCAA Division I is they're at the top of the pecking order. And if you don't find who you want, and somebody leaves your team, and then you can't find who you want in the D1 transfer portal or in the transfer portal from D1, you pick a D2 player. I mean, there are some quality players from D2 that are making noise in D1 this year. D2 and 24, D1 and 25 making some noise. And it works its way down, and there are pros and cons to both of those. So I think it's a wait and see on that a little bit more. I think there are some teams that benefited this year and waited around and took some players that didn't land on a D1 program that they thought they might. And then there are also some D1 players that found a good team close to home. That they were at a D1 program and it didn't work out for them. And then they find an NAIA program that didn't burn its bridge, that was good to them, recruited them, liked them all along and didn't burn the bridges. And they said, hey, things aren't working out. They find their way home. And you know what? It's a pretty good fit after all. NAIA plays some pretty good football, and they found themselves on some pretty good teams. So I hope that works out for the best for all of them. But great question, Robert. I'm glad we got to stick around for that for a little while. All right. Let us go ahead then and bring out the barn. Mrs. Midwest Sportsnet and I have a barn on our property. Now, it's a carriage house, but it's a barn. And I'm not ready to bet the whole farm. Not that we have necessarily a farm here. We have a few plants, but not that much. Wouldn't call it a farm. Definitely not a ranch by any stretch of the imagination, although there are many animals. But some of these things, I look at these prop bets, and even though Vegas didn't have lines on them, we're going to put some lines on them tonight. So no graphics to go with it. You just have to play along, and I invite everyone who's watching us live, and if you're not watching us live, go ahead and chime in with a comment if you tune in later on, Henchman21 or anyone else. Let's go back. Let's talk about Mid-America Nazarene at William Penn. Mid-America Nazarene at William Penn. These are two teams that put up a lot of points. They're both 3-0. They're both riding highs. And we're going to make this a totals bet and say that the line would be over under 68.5 points. 68.5 points. That's the totals bet in this one. Over under. Now remember, when Vegas puts their lines out there, they're just trying to get action. And if they're not getting enough betting action, they'll move the line. Or if they're getting too much one way, they'll move the line. So here's our over under right now. First one. Are you going to bet if you had to bet the barn, would you go over or under total points between Mid-America Nazarene and William Penn, 68.5? Give anyone a chance to chime in on that one. These are two teams, again, that are undefeated. They're going to play this one in Oskaloosa. And Roger chimes in first. He says under. Anyone else want to throw in on that one? I'll tell you what. I think this far along in the season, they have enough film. And though I think that there are a lot of points that could be scored, I like the under on this one too. So go ahead, put me down. I'm on record. I'll tell you what, I'll just go ahead and type it in. I'm on record as going with the under. Charles says under on this one too. So far it's unanimous under. And Charles won a couple last week. All right. Here's one for you, and we'll see if Dave is listening on this one. We're going to drop a Morningside. Here's your prop bet. Definitely total prop bet on this one. Zach Chevalier, quarterback for the Morningside Mustangs. He has 7 passing touchdowns to his credit this season. He's averaging 3.5 touchdowns, passing touchdowns a game. So the over-under, the line we're putting is 3.5. Against Midland, does he go over or under? Here's your prop bet. Over under 3.5 passing touchdowns. This one's a true prop bet here. Robert Whalen going under on the Mid-American Nazarene William Penn, I'm guessing. Let us know in the chat. This one's over under also, and if this is on Zach. Over under on Zach. So Roger's going over on Zach. And I'm going to give you one more piece of information here. So again, week 4, you think that the teams have it. Can Chevalier throw more or less than 3.5 touchdowns in the game? Midland shut out its opponent last week. Midland gave up only 7 points in week 2. Midland gave up 28 points in week 1. 5 touchdowns. All of them were passing touchdowns. So Midland has shown at least through 3 weeks that it could be susceptible through the air. So here's your prop bet. Over under Zach Chevalier, 3.5 passing touchdowns. Let us know that it's Zach on this one if you put over or under, and I'll go ahead and give you mine. I'm going with over. I'm going to go ahead and take over on this one. Midland's defense. Okay, very good, Dave. Well, and you know what? It's a good defense. Obviously, it's shown itself to be a good defense. However, it's given up all the touchdowns it's given up this year have been passing touchdowns. So Dave says Midland's defense caused our passing games problems last year. He's going to take over. So Roger has over on Zach. Dave has over on Zach. Charles has over on Zach. I have over on Zach as well. So we'll go with that one. All right. I bet he finds a selling in that. Robert Whalen under on Zach. Okay. A little more faith in Midland's defense than that. All right. There we go. So it's not a consensus this time. Fair. All right. This one more game, but we have not one, but 2 on this one. They're both totals bets. Okay. Again, betting the barn. If you have to bet the barn, what are you going to do? McPherson at Evangel. There are 2 of these here. So let us know which one. The first one is points. These 2 teams have scored a lot of points this year. And I look back on this. We know that Evangel's putting up 49.3 points a game. And McPherson, it's got to be close to that. I'm not sure exactly what McPherson's is. But the over-under on points, 64.5. So that you could have a 35-31 victory and it go over 64.5. Points. Let us know in the chat if this is points here. McPherson at Evangel. And by the way, this one could be for a playoff spot. So there we go. Roger points takes the under. And pretty good defenses too. Again, we're in week 4. Pretty good defenses. We'll see. Okay. Anyone else want to take a shot at this one? I think these are pretty good defenses too. But I think I just picked it right there. I think one of these teams could come out of here with a 35-31 victory. So I'm going to go with the over on this one. Robert says points under. Okay. I'm out here by myself on this one. I get it. That's all right. Anyone else want a shot at that go on record? Taking a shot at that one? All right. All right, here's the other one. Same game. I mentioned with these 2 teams, they're 3 of the top 6 in the country in total offense. Evangel puts up 564.7 points a game. McPherson puts up 519.7 points a game. Quick math on that one is 1,084.4 points a game. Yes, Roger, I did that just looking at it. Okay. What do you think? Here's your over-under line. 814.5. I think Vegas would put something out there to see if you would bite on this one. Charles also taking points under. So this is yards now. The totals on yards. Over under McPherson at Evangel combined for over under 814.5 yards. You want to take a stab at that one? I know there are a few more people watching than are putting in the chat, but that's all right. No one's wanting to take a stab at that one. All right, I'll go ahead and pitch mine. I've said points over. I think I'm going with yards over too. I think these defenses are both good. Evangel's defense is good. McPherson's defense is good. I just think these offenses they're going to be tough to slow down. And if the weather cooperates, that's a key here. And the weather could completely blow me up on this one, taking the over. But I think the weather is a key to this one. If the weather is good, and it's a nice night in Nixa, and they're able to get that drone show up and going, because don't forget, you got the drone show after the game. If they're able to get that drone show up and going, I think that one, I think it's an over on points and total yards. So I'm going with that. And here we go. Oh, my goodness. We have a new name in the group just in time on this one. So we'll get to that name there. Roger, diversity in barn, in the barn bet. Taking points under, but yards over. Gotcha. All right. And let's see. Robert, yards under only because the usual is what is expected to be offensive show ends up as a defensive battle. I get that. It happens. I've been billing this as an offensive battle all night, and I imagine it's being billed as an offensive battle. Definitely there. So Charles, he's got points under. Charles is going to stay with yards under too. All right. We'll go with that. That's fine. New name to the group. Shout out to somebody from Springfield. Isaac, thanks for watching tonight, man. He's taking yards over and points under. And Isaac, I think, knows a thing or two about one of these teams in here too. So he's going to take yards over and points under. That's not bad picks. Just about everyone showed a little diversity there except me. I went ahead and went with over on both of them. I'm going to say I have faith in both of these offenses. And I think if the weather is kind to the folks there, and Isaac, I think you're going to get to see a drone show. I mean, if you're not working hard after the game, definitely watch the drone show. And I'd love to hear what happens in that. I'd love to hear, or a picture or video. If there's some way to send that, Isaac, love to see something from the drone show in that game to follow. All right. Big night tonight. We had fun. And I have to tell you, I will say this at the end. It was we're about a yard and a half. We're about an hour and a half. We'll start wrapping down. I had to take, 2 weeks ago, I told you we have a lot of animals. We used to have 8. Now we have 7, 4 cats in here. I'm telling you, they find us 3 dogs. We had to take a dog to get surgery last week. These animals, they're family too. And so that was a little bit of struggle. Today had to take a big shepherd mix to the doctor, and that was tough. And so, and he's going to be all right. And if you know anything about this channel, you know that I pray for my animals too. And so we're looking for, him to be all right. But that was where I spent a lot of my day today. I was concerned as to whether or not I'd get here and be here on time. And you know what? I thought we had a good show. And the reason we had a good show is because of you. It's fun. You guys make it fun. Thank you, Isaac. I see that there. You guys make it fun. We have a great community here at Midwest Sportsnet, and it really is. It's so much about you. You all are awesome. So thank you, Robert, for putting something on Facebook. And I'll tell you, we do have goals for subs, and we're growing, and it's just been a lot of fun. This is the last thing, and this is a personal thing, so I'll drop this on here too. No Midwest Sports Saturday this week. Not going to be traveling anywhere this week, but there's a reason, and that is because Mrs. Midwest Sportsnet and I have 5 kids and 4 grandkids, and our number 2 daughter is she loves it when I call her number 2. I don't like anyway. Whatever. Her son is having his first birthday party this weekend, so we're traveling up to the city, as you would say in Oklahoma, OKC, and get to be a part of a birthday party. But trust me, there will be college football that is watched and NAI football that is kept up with. And I've got a lot on the line. I'm concerned. I don't want to lose the barn 4 times over. So we'll see how that works out. But so already a shout out to little Samuel Joseph. Love that name. Who is turning 1 this weekend. So we'll be up there for that. But we'll be back on live on Sunday night. It will be a lot of fun. We'll talk about how our Bet the Varn segment went. And I know we're going to be talking about a lot of fun games and hopefully get to visit with someone else as well. I've been enjoying visiting with all these radio play-by-play and color commentators for NAIA football. That's been a lot of fun on our Sunday show. So we'll try to do that again as well. And maybe, just maybe, if Isaac has a chance, he's not too busy, get some footage from the drone show in Nixa. All right. I think that's it. I think I've gone through everything there. And again, let you know how awesome you are. God made you well. You guys are awesome. So shout out to all of you all. Keep it right here on Midwest Sports Net. And sorry, one of the animals making noise off screen there. Keep it on Midwest Sports Net. Tell a friend and do it with a smile because we like doing everything here with a smile. We enjoy talking about college football on College Football This Week and all these things on Midwest Sports Net. To Isaac, and let's just give it the quick rundown really quickly to Isaac and to Charles and to Robert and to Roger. Roger, who's been here for the whole show tonight. Wow. Dave and everyone else that's on here. I think John was here for a while tonight. John as well being a part of this. Analyze and educate. Shout out. And Casey Willison as well. My goodness, just a great show tonight. Thank you to you guys for all being part of it. I appreciate you. God bless you all. And I think that is it. I will see you on the next one.